Hello, got a new radio from RadioMaster today, and it is a bit different to what they've been bringing out lately. This is much more of a minimal travel type radio, and it's called the T8L. I don't know what you can see from that picture, but one of the noticeable things is there's no screen. It's like, how do you edit it? How do you do things? Well, let's get out of the box. I'll show you what we're dealing with here. It looks like this. Just the radio itself, just a very quick unboxing for a few little bits you've got in here. USB-A to USB-C cable, some little spring replacements, quick setup guide, and of course some stickers. So here's the radio itself, and first thing you notice is like, where are the sticks? Look, they're in the back. You just get them out, screw them straight in. So good for chucking in a case. There's no antenna to get in the way. And you probably think, well, how's it work? What's it run? It runs ELRS. It's set at 100 milliwatts. If you're worried about this, on a open space, that's kilometers of range. And in terms of like, well, how would I change model memory and stuff? It's kind of like you wouldn't. What I've tended to do now with my radios is like all my quads will fly on one model memory because they're all set up the same. I've got the same rates and stuff. The only difference is some of them may have a GPS, so I'll have GPS rescue, and others don't, but I've managed to apply that to all the switches. So I think this is a very interesting idea. There's nothing to get hurt when you throw it in a backpack. You don't need to put it in a special case or anything. It will just be okay. But let's go into close-up. Let's see how the features work. And of course, let's see how you actually configure it, because without a screen to do stuff, how would you set things up? How would you set your rates up? How would you set your sub-trims, that sort of thing? And we can look at how this compares to other radios, anything you're missing in terms of a comparison radio with a screen. Well, here it is in close-up, and just before we get going with the features, I have to say, as soon as I saw this, I instantly thought of something similar. This is the GGI FPV controller 3. You will notice some similarities between it. I'm not total. I mean, look, the potentiometers on the other side, for example, and the stick storage in the DJI is there instead of there. But both have the same idea in terms of travel friendly. Take the sticks off, no screen, nothing to get hurt. Brilliant idea. Anyway, so in this one, as you can see, the sticks fit quite securely in here. They won't just fall out. They take a little bit of effort to get out. But obviously, when travelling, sticks stick out. They're sticky. So it's really useful to be able to take those off and store them and literally just chuck in a backpack and not have to worry about it. So what have you got round here? Well, unfortunately they haven't coloured it in, but you can see embossed in things. You've got M is a multifunctional button. This is the power button. If we hold it in, you'll see the lights come on. That means it's started. These are both multifunctional trims, so they go up, down, and LEDs will come on. Looking like when it's slightly off center, they will come on. Obviously you've got a battery indicator with this. Turn it off again. On top of here, you've got a USB-C connector. This is for charging it. And also it will work with Sims if you just plug it in, and also for connecting to the computer and doing the configuration. Because at this point, you know, what channels are these assigned to, how do they work, what do they do, that sort of thing, that's not set up yet. But in here we've got what you call a latch switch, an on or off, probably an arming switch for me. Then you've got momentary here, and then you've got two 3-position switches here and here. So for most quad flying, that is plenty, and that's how most of my things are set up. Just a couple of switches, a couple of momentaries, and arming. Very rarely I would use that, but it's there if you want. What I noticed with this, it's quite stiff, and it's got no center point that you can easily pick up. Over to back, and if you're wondering what it's powered by, the answer is two 18650s. They do not come included. So that is something to bear in mind, but most people, I think, will have these sort of batteries. Now you'll also notice, if I open this one as well, there are a couple of holes, 1, 2, 3, 4. These are for tensioning the gimbals. So you've got ones that do left and right, ones that do up and down to either tighten or loosen. I don't know if it's a simple case if you want to change over from mode 1 to mode 2, actually, or mode 2 to mode 1 I should say. I assume you can do it, but I haven't seen that mentioned in the manual. As per usual, we have Hall effect gimbals here, which I expect to be very good, always come back to center and stuff. Essentially that's about it. There are various things that this button does in combination with that one. For example, you've got like a one-touch bind in ELRS if you didn't want to do it through the web GUI, but I'm really keen to get stuck into that web GUI and see how this is configured and then fly some stuff. And I will show you what I normally do on my other larger radios, such as my TX15 here, and I can show you how I can fit the majority of my models that I do in here in a single memory in this one. Anyway, let's get this configured. So once we've got the radio ready in front of the computer, we go to this URL, which is going to be in the instructions, and what we then have to do is first plug in a USB-C cable. Right, so once we're at this screen, we need to connect, and what you do is you press the multifunction button and then you do a long press on the power button and it'll make a little beep. And if we say now connect, it's not there yet, try it again. Oh, connection failed, error. Hold. Oh, there it is. Okay, so here we are in the device settings. You see you've got like a factory reset. You can change the key mode settings, which would be weird because that's a 3-position switch. You could say you want it as a 2-position switch, but it would be odd. As you see there, you've got the volume, you've got the tone, whether you want receiver loss warnings, low power warning. I presume this is enabling the trim or not, which you probably wouldn't use on a quad or a multi-rotor, more so if you were flying planes with this, but maybe this isn't the thing to fly planes with as much. Over here we've got a channels monitor. As you can see, I move the sticks, everything looks pretty good. The one weird thing about this is you'll see 1500 as the center point, and it goes lovely back to those as you'd expect. Normally what you want is 2000 at your top and 1000 at your bottom, and what you do normally on an EdgeTX radio is set your low point and your high point so it is exactly in there, which you don't get to do exactly on this. If we go to the channel settings, you could maybe do it by changing the positive travel and negative travel, which I might have a go with. The regular trim and sub trim only changes the center position rather than the lower and higher limits there. Maybe that's something they can add. You've got a channel mapping here, which is handy because, as I said, yeah, I want my channel 5 there, but on this, as standard, channel 6 is there, and normally my channel 6 is here as my mode switch. So all I do here is swap this over to whatever that was. I will double check back on my other radio to see how I've set things so I can set exactly the same. And then you've got the modes, so you can change your modes over. Presumably then you can change the sprungness on the right stick to go to mode 1 if you want to. RF settings wise, this is where it's all about Express LRS. You've got RTX power there at 100, that is the maximum, but you can set it there if you want to, and you can also set it to dynamic power or change it through one of the aux channels if you want to. If we enable the Wi-Fi, we'll be able to go to the web page for Express LRS and change some stuff. For example, the bind phrase that I'm going to use on these ones, as I set them all the same, and I might change this down to, I think I use 150 on most things. Again, I'll double check that before I start. You've also got a way of starting binding from here as well if you want to. There is a calibration screen if you want to check that, and a firmware update screen where not just the controller, the internal module or the sensor. I'm presuming you could do the module via the configure as per normal as well. I don't know what the sensor is, that's interesting. So I'm going to do some changes on this, but the one thing I can look at right now is to enable the Wi-Fi. If I do this, it should create an access point for Express LRS, and if I go up here, yep, I've got that network appearing. So I shall wait just a few seconds. Yep, up comes a little window, and as you can see, it's running a master version because it's not released yet, I'm guessing. Once that gets released, you'll obviously be able to update it if you want to, and in fact there's an update thing here as well which you can drop in or go to the configurator. You can put it and connect it to your home Wi-Fi network, and what I'm going to do here is I'm going to put my binding phrase in, save that, and come back and make some changes. Bear with me while I do that and we'll come back. Right, I've been having a bit of a configuration and I think I've got it down. So what I've done is these are my channels. I've made slight changes so they don't quite go as low or as high now, and to do that I was just playing with the channel settings. I put them down to 99%. 98 would get it around 1000, 2000, but just a possibility that there's just a little bit under, so you might not get full resolution of the sticks. Channel mapping was my big change here, where channel 5 stays here for arming, channel 6 is mode here, channel 7 is SB, which is now that one, and that is actually air mode, which would normally be in like a two-way on a regular one. Now channel 8, you may be thinking that's weird, he's put this on S1. This is because channel 8 on most, well, channel 8 on my other radios is for rescue mode. Now if the quad hasn't got a GPS, it doesn't matter, but keeping it consistent is much easier. So that's kind of just like, I've just kind of chucked that out there. It's on S1 now. So channel 9 and channel 10 are the two little momentary. So we've got SA is over here as going to be a beeper, and that's going to be turtle mode. I have to hold that in because there's no concept of a sticky switch on here. So the other thing I did was, obviously I went ahead and set the Wi-Fi, put it into Wi-Fi and set my bind phrase as you saw there. And then I've put my packet rate down to 150 Hertz Telem 132 standard wide, which is just what I have it on the other radios. I'll show you what it looks like on a regular radio where you've got the benefit of a lot more switches. So on this one we've got arming here, mode switch here, air mode here, rescue mode is SD, which is that one, and then I've got turtle on, where are we, SB, oh that one, and then beeper on SF, which is that one, which covers everything, which is absolutely fine if you've got the switches to do it, but a little bit more complicated if you go to this one. Let me turn on a quad. If I come out of this, okay, so we've got Betaflight here set up on a little quad. I say it's a little quad. It's a little quad without a VTX, which is quite handy because we don't have any issues then. So if we go into receiver, you can see that we're connected. We're still going over and under what we want to be ideally, but we've set it to as best we can do there. Hopefully they'll bring in a little change to the configurator which will set the high and low points just to sort that out a bit. And if I go into my modes here, what we've got is arm, no that's beeper, arm underneath, I have to get used to that one, and then we've got angle, horizon, beeper, air mode, flip over after crash, which I'll have to hold down. So for example, if I really wanted to fly a quad with a GPS, I don't really use horizon, so I could have that as rescue mode, but this is not something I'd necessarily fly, something I was going to do long distance on, because one of the things I want to have when I have my quads with GPS is my telemetry data, so my GPS coordinates, just in case something goes down, I can go and get that easily. So that should allow me to fly with this radio or one of my other bigger radios and still have access to basically the same controls, albeit slightly different switch configuration, because there's just not as many switches here as you would normally have. But I generally get used to that okay. Maybe just a bit of faffing around, but trying to keep it consistent about, you know, this switch and that switch always the same. These switches, try and have them the same, at least stuff over the same places, and it should be fine, in my opinion. Okay, an extra thing to this, which is I was talking about like, oh, I'll have to hold down to flip over crash to do it. And the answer is no, you don't. If we do this, you'll see it acts basically like a sticky button. We can turn it on and off. And beeper, I just like to hold in just to get the beeper going or not. What did I do here? It was pretty simple. I just had an extra look at an option that I forgot to look at previously. Okay, if we connect back up with here, what I did, I changed SD, it was click, and I put it onto single. And that then acts as a sticky, which is quite handy. And I suppose what I could do with the switch I'm using as air mode is if I wanted just use it as a 2-position switch, so it would be on easier, but I can just do the range of that in Betaflight. So yeah, that's one thing that's going to be a little bit easier to do things. So yeah, off to fly now. Hello, welcome to the field on this very blustery and dodgy day. I'm going to speak quite quickly because the forecast today is terrible. There was a slight window when it was only 30% chance rain, and I've driven through rain to get here, and if you can look round, we've got clouds building everywhere. So it's not going to last, and we've got the 15-mile-an-hour wind. But anyway, we're out here to test the T8L, and the reason I wanted to come to this field rather than fly indoors or at the woods is because I really feel this radar is about like taking out, you know, a decent quad, a 5-inch or something, and flying it around a space. And what I'm thinking here is like about 500 meters all around is what you do for this. As I said, I wouldn't take it for like long distance things, and I'll explain why in more detail. But yeah, I'm going to fly this around, see how it goes, see if I can beat the wind. Let's go. Okay, so we're off and flying, and a few things to note about this. First off, I thought I had a pretty good camera on this, albeit an old one, but as it turns out, that sort of old thing and the wide dynamic range is a bit lacking. As you see, it's fine when the sun's behind it, but when we go towards the sun and the sun is really low in the sky, it has a real problem. So I flew 3 batteries before like the rain came, and what I was trying to do is fly to all the extents of the field, mostly to have just a normal fly around as I would do, but also to see what sort of dBm value the signal will come to when I went down various bits. So I'm going in front of me, behind me, to the side of me, that sort of thing. And I didn't have any problems, but here are some of the readings, if you like, that I got from it. So when flying behind myself, the signal definitely worse. Now I don't know if this means it's got more of a directional antenna or just the fact that flying behind yourself, even with an Omni, when you're basically stood in the way of the signal, can be bad. Now we got it above minus 100 a few times. I'm at 150 Hertz, so the theoretical max it can go to is minus 112, and although the instructions say, you know, you might want to set an alert at 102, I might think about 105 would be the place where I'd like to be saying, hey, look out here, because it's not just it carries on going at the same rate. When you get to like minus 100, it takes a little bit more before it gets to like minus 100 and whatever. But coming down here, if we get low, if we get behind a bunch of bushes and a bunch of trees, we get down to as low as minus 105. That's where I'd sort of like, if I kept going in that sort of direction and kept getting more obstacles, then I'd be worried. But as it was, that's the lowest I could get in this situation. So going down the field in front of me, which is I think about 300-400 meters at the end of it, is predictably pretty easy stuff. Like the dBm value at minus 70 something is absolutely fine. And as I said, I've done over like a kilometer many times on 100 milliwatts, so going straight out in front of myself, I don't think it's going to be a problem. The only thing I don't know about this radio is what type of antenna it has, but as I said, I think for sort of around 500 meters all around you, it would cope with that, whether you're front, back, side or whatever. And here I am flying to the extreme side of myself. You see it's a higher value than in front, but not as bad as going behind. It certainly makes me think along the sides of this is a directional antenna rather than an Omni, because where going out the back might have more of a problem on Omni, it's normally pretty okay going to the side of myself. That's where it really struggle more on the video rather than the radio signal. So yeah, that's about it. As I said, 3 batteries done. Pretty miserable day, wouldn't recommend it. But I was keen to get out and fly a proper quad, if you like, instead of something mini, because I kind of think this is the idea of a travel radio. Not so much that it's used for a small quad or an inside quad, just the fact it's very convenient to chuck in a bag or travel with and have some fun with. I'll just show you what the landing looked like in this awful camera. Basically, you just got this little yellow blob somewhere in this field of blackness, and you kind of just have to aim for that and then stick it. Okay, so I mentioned that I wouldn't fly this to do anything a bit of a longer range. Why not? And the answer is all about telemetry. If you look at any of the Edge TX radios or OpenTX radios, certainly that RadioMaster does and others, you have a screen, and the screen can take telemetry data. I'm using the TX15 here because it's easy to show and I can put stuff on the main screen. I've shown videos before about finding quads, and obviously backup beepers is what I like. But if you've got a GPS on there, one of the things you can show is the GPS coordinates, and if it goes down and loses signal, then it will show the last GPS coordinates, and that's very easy to follow. Something I use a lot, even when flying these little things, because when they crash in, like, you know, bushes and stuff, they can be hard to find. I will use the RSS dBm value, and that is pretty sensitive. I've got one about 3 feet away, and it's showing -65. If I move it closer, you can see it instantly go down. And just having that in a direction sense, so if I walk here, it starts getting lower, then I'm getting closer. If it starts getting higher, then I must be walking away. And you can really help you to pin stuff down. You obviously don't get any of this on this radio. So if you crash, make sure you've got something like, you know, a backup beeper, or you know where you are. That would be useful. I also think it's quite interesting that I think RadioMaster already bought out what I would call like a backpack radio, and that is the RadioMaster Pocket. That also has the sticks in the back things there, so you can put them away. It has got an antenna that can be folded away, which is pretty good, but it has got a screen. It's got a more powerful ELRS transmitter. It's got a module bay, and of course it's got telemetry on there. I haven't set up a screen for it, but you can see the dBm value there. I have to say, ergonomically, I don't particularly like the way this feels. I like the way this feels a lot better. It's very, very similar to a game controller. It's not too much bigger than a PS5 controller, so it does sit in the hand very nicely and feels very good. I suppose the question is, how do I feel about this one without having a screen, without having extra things to edit and telemetry and an expansion bay and that sort of thing? It's an interesting one. I think, you know, this is a very specific purpose and it works for what it does. You can chuck it in a backpack, you don't have to worry about it, you can fly plenty of quads around quite happily and not have a problem. But I don't think that should be your only radio. This is a great travel radio. You don't want it as your primary radio. You want something with a screen that can do more, that has more switches, more capabilities, but interesting nevertheless. Now, as of the day I'm recording this, it's still about 2 weeks away from release, and what we don't know at the moment is how much this is going to be. To put it into perspective, this is, I think, $64.99 in dollars. So is this going to be cheap enough to have as like an add-on radio, so it's something you can travel with and be good? I don't know. I'm kind of conflicted about it. I think the idea of it is fine. A nice travel radio is something you chuck in, but you wouldn't want to then go too far away or not have that telemetry available. That's my only concern about it. But certainly an interesting product, if maybe a little niche for what we're doing. Anyway, this is the RadioMaster T8L and was kindly supplied by RadioMaster for review, thanks to them. And of course, if you want to see it in more detail, then check the links down below. I hope that review's been helpful, and I will catch you next one. Bye for now. Well, you've made it to the end of the video, so thanks once again for watching. If you like what you saw, then please consider subscribing, and if you really like what you saw, then be sure to check out the link to my blog for a variety of ways in which you can help support this channel.